Morning, everybody. It's 8:15 a.m. It's November 5th. Welcome to my channel. Now, yesterday, what a little wild open, followed by a little balance, and then the market dipped, and then we kind of just played around at the lows. Now, that's the S&P 500. Nasdaq was relatively weak. It didn't have the same price action, kind of like moved down a little more easier. That's because it was relatively weak. Okay. But yesterday, the market overall wasn't that weak. That's why the S&P 500 didn't just all out sell off. Okay? Didn't all out sell off. Now, after the market closed, we took a ride down. Okay? We took a ride down, and AMD earnings, I believe supermarket computers, didn't matter. They had decent earnings. They were down. Okay? And it pushed the market lower. Now we're recovering. We're gapping down again, but that gap is almost gone. Okay, so that's significant. That's significant. So we now hit the 20-day simple moving average in the NASDAQ futures and the ES futures. Okay. Today, I think we're ready for balance. I think we're going to balance today. I think it's going to be a range bound day. That's just probabilities. That doesn't mean it has to be that way. Okay. We're taking like a lot of froth off this frothy market. A lot of speculative plays getting crushed. We'll go over that. Okay. And yesterday, again, I didn't really have a true setup. Again, this is like really getting old. In my futures, Now, what I am doing, okay, to to circumvent this, I have one of my friends told me about the Top Step funded program, and I've signed up for that. And what I'm trying to take advantage of is more or less scalping, because there's plenty of times I've been watching this market long enough where I kind of can look at it and be like, we should bounce here. All right, we should get resistance here. We should go back here. But they're not like setups for like a big move. They're like little moves sometimes. And so what I've been trying to do using futures is scalping. And I've done pretty decent. So what this is showing me, this is just for me to get approved to get an evaluated account. What it's showing me is that maybe there's another tool here that I just never really did. Because me, I'm usually set at a price risk to like a very precise entry. That's why I haven't been getting my entries. But in a scalp kind of thing, it's just like I'm in, I'm out, and I can see the benefits. Like I took a long really close off the open. Now in my regular trading style, I would be chasing. And I wouldn't really trade it because if I don't get a thing I want to see. But in the realm of I think we push up, like yesterday was right off my pre-market stream again, right off of it. And a lot of times I'm like, man, I don't have a setup. Well, if I scalp it and I'm just in where I think we might take off with a small risk and it started ripping. And then I'm like, all right, I'm just trailing my stop. And that's it. It's not this has to come back to here. I'm taking advantage of the momentum that I believe that's there. So I'm going to keep doing this. And eventually, if I see I can derive a system from it, I'll just do it on my personal account as well. When I don't feel like I'm getting the setups, I will go for the more of a scalp and just take what the market's giving me. Okay? Just wanted to let you guys know. I also can see how this thing could be a video game and you can get lulled in. Like yesterday, I think I was up 550 and I was up 450 something the prior day. And I literally was like, all right, I'm done. That's cool. Almost up to grand in 2 days. Let me relax. And then I saw a couple of trades and I'm like, let me get in. And then I winded up only up $100 for the day. And now I'm seeing like, all right, there's a little bit of this video gamey thing with it. And now I got to pull it back and just be like, all right, just take where the market's going to give you something. All right, because you can feel the quick money. Because I don't really trade like that normally. You feel like the quick money that just comes, right? So we'll see. All right, we'll see. I'm not posting when I'm doing that because I don't feel like it's my true setups. It's like I'm figuring it out. All right, but it's definitely based on experience of like what the market generally does. Okay, so just letting you know about that. Now, without that, let's get into it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steve Gonzalez. I use market profile, volume profile to find structure in the markets, along with supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, and most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That's my edge. It's the way I look at the markets. Okay, I also use Anchor VWAPs, market internals, bookmap, and my weekly expected move indicator. All right. Now, hopefully, you guys join me every day. I do this every morning. Give you the market story. Give you the real deal of the markets. All right. The news, economic calendar, and why the market's doing what it's doing and what we're capable of doing. Okay. Not predictions, probabilities. Give you scenarios because I'm not going to be tied to one idea. Why would I be? Right? Then you get caught in a bias, right? And you got to flow like water in this market. All right. Now, if you want more in-depth, all right, in-depth coverage from me, you're going to join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to the YouTube homepage, click on the link, and sign up. Okay. And if you want to see what that Discord does, all right, give you live market updates. Gave you guys a video yesterday. Right off the bat, 2 days in a row, I gave you my links to my scenarios. Okay. This is when the market ripped off the open. Notice the internals here were not strong. They were not weak. They were strong. Look at that. Rip, 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 rip. Now, normally I'd be like, man, I didn't have a setup. Well, I scalped. Okay. That came to fruition. All right. Now, also, I had some long plays. Okay. And I was looking at the market and go, okay, that bounce, I'm not going to touch them because we could rip. Well, as soon as we ripped, I was like, this is not looking too hot. This is not looking too hot. Now, off the bat, let me show you something that is very on my internal window here. Look at this NASDAQ ADD. I want to show you that. Okay. Whenever you're negative 2,000 or above, you very rarely don't keep selling. It basically all pullbacks, all pops are shortable or short, right? 3-to-1, 2-to-1. Now we did gap, so sometimes that gets a little jaded. But however, even when we were moving up, we were still in the 2000. Now we did recover a little bit, and I showed you guys that again. I'm saying the NASDAQ ticks are holding under zero. That is very bearish. I wrote that right here. This is bearish. Okay, these are the ticks, and they kept being negative, negative, negative. That is also a sign that the market is going to keep selling Okay. And I point this out at 12:20. I said right here, I said ticks told the story here. Had more, I just was taking more short scalps. But then I was like, everyone, along with ticks, not everyone, along with ticks, the ADD of the Nasdaq exchange, negative 2000, is bearish. Nasdaq has no support after the low of day. So I pointed that out here. Now the market started to turn over. And you see the internals actually never got weak. Okay, they never got weak. But look at that look at that ADD of the Nasdaq exchange. That is very weak. Okay, so I knew most likely every pop was going to get sold into. So that's where I was shorting. Okay, that's where I was shorting. So that's the what I give you every day. Okay. And I took those options trades off that I was talking about. I was like, I'm not hoping for this. This is not gonna go. This is not gonna go great for my trades. All right. The one thing I have been looking at on the weekends is Costco. I've been putting Costco in here as a long, and that friggin' thing took off. It alerted me, and also MicroStrategies. I think I tried to get ahead of that yesterday, and I just took it off. But Costco, man, it took off. Didn't really give me a setup though. That's the thing. Took off. So that's trading though, right? So that's my Discord. All right, that's my Discord. Now, moving on. Let's go right into the futures watch list here. And Ethereum's leading the pack. Ethereum's leading the pack today, up 3.75%. The VIX is up 1.84% by the 19.35 VIX. The Bitcoin's up. Bitcoin hit its 200-day moving average. It slipped, I think it slipped below 100,000 for a second. That's why I got long MicroStrategy. The market's starting to perk up right now. Like I said, we'll look at it in a little bit. All right. Let's see. Bitcoin's up 1.80. Silver's up 0.64. Gold's up 0.62. Russell's up 0.35. The 10-year yield. 10-year yield is flat basically. The Dow is flat. The dollar is flat. Dollar's at 100. Okay. ES is flat. 30-year bonds being sold slightly. Nasdaq is basically flat, down 0.12. See what I'm saying? We were really down a lot earlier. Crude down 0.54. All right, moving on to the Mag 7 Plus here. See who's leading the pack? That's Coinbase. Coinbase, the Bitcoin proxy. Okay, that actually hit its expected move to the downside yesterday. Hit its expected move to the downside yesterday. Okay. Tesla up 1.19. Eli Lilly's been on a tear this week for healthcare. Okay. Meta has been really getting sold into. All right. Remember, I have that put credit on there. So we'll see. Okay. Google up 0.32. Apple's up 0.16. Who's lagging today? Really only AMD after earnings. And they had good earnings. It's just the market, they were ripping. So that's what happened a lot. A lot of earnings like Palantir had great earnings, and now it's been really taking a bloodbath. Okay, because of the overvaluations from Wall Street executives. Okay, market was very frothy. Okay. Let's get into it. Let's get into the top sectors. Let's see what's moving here. So the gold miner here up 1.67%. McDonald's reported earnings up 0.93. Qualcomm's up 0.56. The laggard is Palantir. That has been a bloodbath there. Down 1.25%. Let's get into the granular list here. Woo. Unity Software reported earnings. They're up 6.25%. What is this? Iris Energy, they're up 3.56. They reported after the close today. Mara Mining up 3. There's a lot of Bitcoin crypto related. Soundhound up 3.24. Oklo, that's a speculative nuclear play. HIMS up 2.62. Micron, MicroStrategies. Now MicroStrategies is up to 253. So, like I said, I'm still going to look. Now what I've been doing, and I've noticed that I've been doing it, is like playing these individual plays, knowing that the market might not be in the best place, and that's what I gotta stop doing that. I really got to wait for the market to set up and then go to the plays. All right. But something like Costco would have been okay because if the market dips, people are going to go into staples. All right. So let's look at the negatives here. Woo. Pinterest, the annually reported earnings, down 17.56%. Arista, down 8.89. Super Microcomputers, down 7.51. I think that's Emerson. Humana Healthcare, down 4.21. They reported earnings. UPS, down 1.65. All right. That's your granular list today. Let's move on to sectors. Basic materials today. It looks like the miners, metals are moving higher. Financials had a decent day yesterday. And let's see who's lagging today. We have industrials and technology, but they're not that much. Okay. This is what I'm saying. It's kind of muted this morning. And even though the market's starting to prop up, I'm not sold on that prop up. Okay, I'm not saying we're going to sell off, but I think we're ready for a range-bound day unless something happens, right? But we remember today, the Supreme Court tariff hearing is at 10 a.m. That is very pivotal. Is Trump going to get a stop to tariffs? And that would be a shame if it happens, and this is not political. This is just because then we have, what bargaining chip do we have as a country? If we can't impose tariffs, what can we do? Nothing. Right? How do we make a deal if we can't impose tariffs? It's kind of crazy, right? So, like, you have no tools. Like, we strip ourselves of any tools to negotiate, right? I don't think that's fair. So, the market's propping up here. All right, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens here in this market. Okay. I think we need a break today. I think we need a break. Maybe we don't. It's only probabilities here. Okay. Let's move on. We're going to talk about the economic calendar because there is some things on the economic calendar. One thing I missed here. Let's see here. Let's put it to a 1-star here. Let's go to that economic calendar. Now today, 30-year mortgages did go up. Like I said, 10-year yield usually affects mortgages. They went up 1%. Previous 6.3, they're at 6.31. That makes sense. Okay. ADP employment change came out. Let's see. Consensus was 25K. We actually added more jobs at 815. Okay. We have PMI, global composite PMI in services at 945. That has a 1-star for some reason. But the 2 stars is the ISM. ISM comes out at 10 a.m. So I'm probably not doing anything unless a scalp. Besides scalp after 10 a.m. I'm just going to wait. For that data to come out. No sense in hoping or being like, why am I in this trade, right? Because then I have to close it. Okay, so that's their economic calendar for today. Now, like I said, let's go to a more calendar with Trump and stuff like that, right? Now, there's a couple things going on today. At 8:30, Trump, which is happening now, okay? Trump speaks with Republican senators, okay? Then you have the U.S. PMI. Then you have 10 a.m. you have the ISM services, and 10 a.m. you have the U.S. Supreme Court tariff hearing. Then Trump speaks at 1 o'clock. There's a lot going on today. Okay, that tariff hearing is going to be really important. What I'm hearing, or what I've been listening to, not that I have inside information, is that it's very highly unlikely that they're going to take away the tariffs. But I don't know. Okay, I really don't know, but that's what they're saying. That would really be shocking if they actually told the president you can't do tariffs. Okay. Oh, look what Trump just said here. Let's see here. 829. So this might be why you got a little pop in the market here. So at 829 it says Trump, the shutdown is impacting stock market, which is not true. Trump, stock market has hit many record highs in the last 9 months. Trump, the stock market will hit more record highs. Of course, he's saying that, right? Now you also have at 8:50, at 3 o'clock in the morning, China bans foreign AI chips from state-funded data centers. There's a lot going on, folks. Okay, today again, I think any minute after 10 a.m. could just be like, what the heck just happened? And I'm hoping I'm not doing anything at 1 o'clock. So jam-packed. Jam-packed. Now, calendars. The earnings for today, right? Let's look at those. Before the open today was Novo Nordisk. That's the weight loss drug. Humana, McDonald's, Unity Software. Okay. After the close today is Hood, Robinhood, IonQ, Quantum Computing, AppLovin, AMC, Dutch Brothers, Coffee, Qualcomm, Semi, ARM, Semi, Snap Inc. Okay. Before the open, D-Wave, I believe that's Quantum Computing. Before the open tomorrow, ConocoPhillips, Energy, Oscar Health, Vistra, Energy. Okay. AstraZeneca, Datadog, Warner Brothers, Moderna. That's before the open tomorrow. Okay? Now, moving on from there, let's look at some more news, some stock news here. Let's go to the stock news. AMD stock dropped 4.4 as a spike in sales and profit at the AI chip maker was overshadowed by darkening sentiment around the elevated tech valuations. Pinterest stock slumped 18% after the image sharing platform's quarterly revenues guidance fell short of expectations. Supermicro stocks dropped 7.2 after artificial intelligence focused server maker missed quarterly profit and revenue estimates. McDonald's stock gained 0.9 after the burger giant's U.S. restaurants reported better than expected same-store sales growth. Novo Nordisk stock gained 8.8 after the drug maker announced a better than expected Medicare pricing deal. Humana stock slumped 5.8 after the insurer reported lower third quarter profit. Okay, moving on to more. Let's see. It says don't panic yet, investors say as high-flying AI stocks tumble. Right? Wall Street bonus is expected to be the highest in 4 years. Tesla board to shareholders, pay Musk or else. Google proposes App Store reforms and settlement with Fortnite maker Epic Games. Amazon sues Perplexity over agentic shopping tool. Interesting. So let's just read this. Nasdaq and S&P futures fell as investors pulled back from the AI link stocks for a second straight session amid mounting concerns over lofty evaluations. Okay. And if there's nothing new in here, I am not going to get into it. All right, I guess this is why UPS is down. UPS wide-body cargo plane crashed on Tuesday and erupted into a fireball moments after takeoff from the international airport in Louisville, Kentucky, killing 7, including all 3 aboard, and injuring 11 on the ground. Damn, that's not good. Yeah, this is about quantum, right? Futuristic quantum computing stocks take speculators on a roller coaster ride. All right, AbbVie, Piper Sandler raises target price to 289 from 284. AMD, JP Morgan raises target price to 270 from 180. Caterpillar, Jeffrey raises target price to 700 from 570. Pinterest, JP Morgan cuts target price to 36 from 44. All right. Then we have the data coming out, 8:15, 9:45, 10 a.m. Talked about that already. All right. I think one thing I'm going to get into, instead of just showing you the breadth chart, okay, we're going to just show you internals real quick. Just to show you what was under the hood yesterday. I went into it a little bit before. Okay, let me get my marker. Okay. So look at these sectors off the open yesterday. Notice tech was relatively weak, right? Down 0.86 from the open. Financials up 0.91. Communications up 0.26. Healthcare point. The market is not going to rip down when the internals are like this. The internals actually were never negative. The only reason you had this downturn is because you got so strong that you then had a downtrend towards the end of the day, but never got negative. Okay? Remember what I said, that NASDAQ ADD right there, negative 223.71. Now, that's at the exchange level. But look at the S&P 500, only minus 59. That is basically 250 stocks above the previous day's close, 250 stocks below. Now, the NASDAQ 100 was weaker. Okay? That's only out of 100. Makes sense. Okay? But this is the reason the market just didn't all out go down, because it can't. If this is, the tech was really the outsized weakness. The outsized weakness, right? And remember, this white line is RSP, the ticker RSP, equal weight. Look at the equal weight. Now look what happened to the equal weight. Started to rise. That's very hard for the market to rip lower. That's why it didn't do that during the market real-time trading hours. Okay, that's why that didn't happen. Now, to take it one step further, to show you guys just how our market looked, right? Here's a heat map of our S&P 500. Notice the big red is all tech, right? But look at the financials, green. Discretionary, the only red really was Tesla at 100 little greens. Healthcare, mainly green, right? And if we could even break it down to sectors here, let's go sectors, right? Financials, healthcare, staples. Now, these are not off the open. This is just from the previous day's close, right? It's just from the previous day's close. Now, I have a list here with more stocks that are speculative here, right here. Look at that. These are speculative plays that I have that I chart, right? Rigetti, APLD. Look at this sea of red. I mean, this is not speculative bonds, but I just have it on a list. Entities, not as utilities, right? But look at all this red. These are all speculative plays. Well, not Palo Alto, really. But the Nimbus, EOS, IonQ, Rigetti, right? ASTS, Rocket Labs, all down. Oklo. So that is that list, right? And now if you look at my main list here that I look at every day, Apple wasn't really down, right? And then you had a sea of red here. Eli Lilly and Berkshire Hathaway were the highlights there, right? If you go to more of a crypto, Bitcoin, like I have a little bit of it here, there's Coinbase, these are all those, all big time red, right? All big time red. If you want to go to staples, look at the staples, all pretty much green. PepsiCo is a little down, right? Healthcare, let's check that out. Eli Lilly. See, this is where these bright spots were in the market. Even discretionary had Home Depot, Lowe's, right? And what else here? Let's see what else. These are regional banks. Let's see here. I'm just trying to look at other things. Let's see how solar did. That was pretty bad. Biotech. Let's see. All right. That's pretty much it. But that's your NASDAQ 100. See a red. Now there is, believe it or not, there is Costco in there. There is a little bit, but it's mainly tech. Okay, mainly tech. Dow Jones has NVIDIA in there, right? But you have other financials, industrials in there as well. So just showing you, right? All the point of that was to show you that this wasn't an all-out assault in the markets. It just wasn't. The NASDAQ had the assault. Okay, now remember, XLK is 36% of the market cap, so it's going to bring it down, but it's going to have a hard time bringing it down when the other sectors are not weak. Okay, so we did a little reversal yesterday of tech finally. I've been saying this for I don't know weeks that tech is finally going to have a day where then markets could take a dip. Okay, they take a dip. So let's look at the daily charts now. Let's go with our good old SPY here. All right, so let's look at those together. Now look what we did yesterday. Yesterday too was interesting, right? Because if you look at it a little closer here, notice we opened here, right? We opened here, and we kind of just we dipped a little bit and then ripped. We ripped up where? Into last week's, what was that? Last week's lows. Yes, and we this is in futures. This would be a gap fill, but in stocks you go by the close. But range gap wise, we went and filled and hit the previous day's lows, and that was like whoa. That's also what though, right? If you look at it in a range way, right? Remember, this is kind of like a balance area. You see how it went inside this range, and that's where people took profits and then sold off. Okay, so that's what happened yesterday. So you had that momentous buying, and then the market just couldn't hold it. The dip buyers, it didn't work yesterday. Okay, that's what happened. Now, where are we today? 675.88. 675.88. We are right here, right by the opener yesterday, but at the lower third. So structurally, that's not strong, even though we did push down lower earlier, right? Now, moving over to futures so we can see exactly in these overnight sessions. That is a nice wick there. That is a nice wick. Okay, so in futures, notice what we did. We undercut this session. Now we're above the 20-day simple moving average. Okay, we touched it yesterday, bounced, but then we ripped through it. Now, that's a nice hammer. So that could be shorts taking profits, and now this could catapult us higher. I don't know, but we do have a supply zone now on daily here, right here. So that is something, and that is around 68.49 or like 68.48 or so. We have to see, right? Because now you just went like this, boom, 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 right? Nice hammer candle. Could that be it? Could that be the pullback? I don't know. Okay, I don't know. That is nice buying though. Okay, Qs. Look at the Qs. We're in this balance range, right? And what did the Qs do? Now notice relatively weaker, right? We did not come close to the previous day's lows at all. Have a gap here, right? We did not, because it was relatively weak. We did go into last week's range, but then we fell, right, into a prior weekly high. That's a prior weekly high right here at this candle. Right? Still have this uptrend intact. Expected move to the downside is 611 into Qs this week. We did not go there. Okay, now maybe we did in the overnights. Right? But right now we're at 619.80. 619.80, where does that put us? Near the close of yesterday. So, yes, we did just put a nice hammer in, but we're still at the lows of yesterday. Okay? Look at futures. Here's our futures. Okay? You can see a nice hammer candle. we crossed the 20-day simple moving average, and now that usually triggers some buy programs. And now look, we got a hammer. We have supply now in the daily right here. So we're below last week's range, right? There's last week's lows. What do we do here? Is this in the grand scheme? Look at the zoom out, folks. In the grand scheme, we're still in an uptrend. We're still in an uptrend. Okay? This is typical market, right? You're frothy, 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 all-time highs. You pull back. Now what? We're in November. Like I said, is this different? Is this mean our market falls apart? I don't know. Right? I don't know. Now, let's look at the RSP from yesterday, right? We know what happened. This is the equal weight. Let's just look at it. What did it look like yesterday? Look at that. Just had a doji. Didn't even break the prior day's lows. See what I'm saying? Doji. Right? Let's look at that New York Stock Exchange. It's going to look similar. Right here, the New York Stock Exchange did break the previous day's lows, right? So the RSP didn't, but the New York Stock Exchange did. And this should look weaker than NASDAQ Composite, right? Look at that. Right. That makes sense. Now, we'll finish it off with the percentage of stocks in the S&P 500 that are over their 50-day simple moving average. We're only still at 38%. That is not strong, okay? 38% of stocks are only over their 50-day simple moving average. It's not a good breath, okay? It's not good. Now, if we go to historical, frothy, oversold conditions is when you get down to like below 10%. That's when you really get the boop. That's really when your market's really, really oversold. Okay? That's that. Okay? We're going to move on to the hourly charts. Let's look at those together. Like I said, a lot to go over today. And this is your hourlies. Okay, so let's look at what's going on here. All right, so a couple levels. Now remember, I talked about this yesterday. This most traded price of the rolling month is 67.80. Remember I said these are ultimate balance levels, right? I'm sorry, not ultimate balance levels. Most traded price of the rolling month. I said very important. I said, remember, markets don't usually just rip through them and leave them in the dust. It doesn't usually happen. So look what we did in the overnight. Ripped, right? Did we spend time down here? A little bit, but then look what we did. Whoop. Bounce, bounce, bounce. Not surprised. Not surprised because these levels are magnets. These levels are magnets, right? And then what do? We tried again, and the market is now pushing up. This is why I said, and I believe it was Cole was in the room yesterday, and he's like, I think we're going to 666 in the SPY. And I said, maybe, right? But I said, all I care about, see, we didn't come down to this in the real-time trading hours, to this area. Then we did, whoop, and then look, see what I mean? This is going to stop markets. That doesn't mean we can't roll back over, but this is a pretty nice move, right? Pretty nice. We just had consolidation, dipped, made a swing low, and now we're pushing. Okay. 67.80. Okay. Market needs to spend time more here in order to maybe go like this, right? And this is what I'm saying. I believe probably this area becomes our trading today. Okay. Maybe with SCOTUS and stuff like that, with the tariff hearing, maybe not. But look what the market's doing right now. Remember, we're going into November, December. The buyback blackout period for companies is ending after earnings. They could do buybacks. This is why the bullish end of the year is usually bullish. Buyback window opens back up. Portfolio and fund managers have to cook their books basically at the end of the year. And what I was told was in December they usually rebalance, and there's usually a correction the first 2 weeks of December, and then that's when they start to buy. Okay. Remember, every time we get one of these, like, ooh, it turns into a buying opportunity. Now, I don't know if this is it. I don't know, right? What I do have, just so you guys understand, I have an anchored VWAP from that low. So that's going to tell me where buyers are. That anchored VWAP. See how we tried to go below and couldn't? And this is sellers from this day, this anchored VWAP. So sellers are right there. So this is where I know where average seller is here. And this is where I know where the average buyer is here from this point. Okay. Looking at the NASDAQ. Same thing that I talked about in the NASDAQ. Remember I said there was really not a lot of support below in the NASDAQ. Remember this profile I showed yesterday? I said, look, there's not much below here until this high volume node. Right here. That's where the market came to. That's why I say I use the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. This is a high volume node. I said this yesterday. I said, watch, here is where there's a high volume node. And when in pre-market, we were here. And I said there is not support below. And look what the market did. Boom, 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 boom. Like a knife in the ground. And then ripped up. And now look what it's doing. Swing low, rip. This is not good structure. Look at this, just falling. This isn't sideways fall, sideways fall. Now, let's see if tech really gets a move on today, because this really could clean all that up right to there, right to the anchored VWAP from these sellers. Okay, it came down to the 253s. I talked about this yesterday. It just happened to put the final move in for now in the overnight. Okay, in the overnight. So let's get rid of this supply zone because that's gone. And I can't stress enough the SCOTUS hearing, the data that's coming out. Okay, this is not good structure all the way up to here. It's not. It can get ripped to shreds. Remember, we hit the 20-day simple moving average in futures. Okay. You could even do a little trend line here as well. Let's see what we could do with that. Do we keep moving, push up, one bounce to the trend line, and start to push back up? Wow, that would be something, huh? That would be something. And it's always easier to go long in a market because a short is very hard to time it. It is really hard because the majority of the time the market goes up. And when short happens, it's quick, 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 quick. And then, short's got to cover now. Okay? That's how it works. That's why it's always easier to go long. Okay? That is hourly charts. So, again, I don't steer you guys wrong. Okay? I just don't. That's why these levels that I talk about are important. Okay? It's how the market moves. It's really how the market moves. It's no shock to me. That's why, it doesn't mean you make money, all the time, even though I'm right now. But look, it happened in the overnight. Like, I can't do anything about that. A lot of times the moves happen in the overnights, right? Let's move on to the market profile, volume profile. And this is your market profile, volume profile analysis. Okay. So this is a pretty strong sign that the selling might be done. That's a nice buying excess here. That is pretty nice in the overnights. Came down to this demand here, ripped up. Nice volume. Got a bullish imbalance to the profile. Holding the 67.80. You're back over that most traded price of the month. Okay. And I think probability is we range today. That's what I would have to guess. Market just said, no, we're not going lower. Now that's going to be hard without a catalyst to just drive down. Okay. It can happen with a catalyst. Okay. It can happen. Our profile, now we still have value up here. That's where value is, all the way up here. And then we have this excess that was just put in. Okay. So, now, we were probably 90% net short at one point down here. Now that's gone. Look, we're back inside yesterday's range. We're not gapping down. We're not gapping down. Okay. So, some levels to look at. We know we have the 67.80s. So I'm going to put a range right here. That's your most traded price of the month. We do have a gap still right there. And also, what is here? Right here. So you have, and what this contains, I'm going to have two boxes here. Okay. You have not a great low here in that yesterday's, but that makes less of importance because the overnight took care of that. But that's not a good excess low. And then we just drove lower, right? So, and AMD was down, I think 7-8% earlier. Now it's only down 2.25%. Okay. So what can happen? Okay, what can happen? We have a supply zone right here. Okay, and what I'm going to say here, and this is yesterday's highs. Okay, this is how I'm going to look at today. The most traded price of the month also lines up with the midpoint, the 50% retracement of the overnights. Okay, this, I'm telling you right now, is not, if we land in this area, we could chop. It's the most traded price of the month. Okay, so that means you could land here and chop. It will move eventually, and that will be the telltale. But it is not a great area to be in. Okay, so let's break out the session and get into scenarios. Like I said, I don't even know what I'm going to say right now. I still don't know until I go over it with you guys. Okay, what I do know is this is like very good buying excess. Pretty much this I would say is probably we're not going to hit that today unless there's a catalyst. Okay, now start with the bull scenario. Let's put this up here. Okay, price is right here. You're right at yesterday's most traded price. Now, if you had to think about yesterday, okay, this is where VPOCs are important, okay? And this is just behavior of people. If this was the most traded price of yesterday, around 68.03, got to think of it. What do you think those people were? Long or short? Most likely short, right? I would think there was mainly shorts there. It's the most traded price of yesterday. Okay, we're still there, right? Makes sense. However, let's say the market opens, right? And we rip up, right? And all I'd want to see if we start to push up, and that's 50% retracement yesterday's 68.22. Let's just say we then pull back. And I could say you could pull back even to the 68.03s. Well, I'm going to tell you this. These shorts are going to cover. Now, this could be new shorts, and then they can get their face ripped off if the market is not weak. And then what do? You go into this, and you try to make your way up to yesterday's highs. Notice I don't want to be evolved around here that much. Okay. The other scenario is this. We can do something like this. We go up, break the overnight highs, and then pull back into the overnight VPOC, which happens to be around 67.90s around. No, I'm not going to lie to you. That is 67.95, 94s. Okay? If that holds the overnight VPOC right here, whoop, and then retest then we can go higher. Okay? This is where it gets very difficult. Okay? And there could be a long here. Now, if the market does go and just rip through 67.80, I have to see something like this, like a rip back up, then a hold, to probably dribble up. I'm not a biggest fan of that. I don't really want to long underneath 67.80. It's not. I don't think it's a smart play, but that could be what happens. It's a bear trap. Okay, shorts. Let's look at it. Let's look at it. Let's look at it. Let's look at it. All right. Am I gonna say that again? Let's look at it. But let's do it now. Short wise, right now we are in a more bearish structure. Right, we're at the lows of yesterday. Right. We tried to go below 67.80, but we couldn't yet hold below there. Now, we do have some resistance around the 67.14.15 area. So let's say this. Okay. Push up, hit that area, hit the end of this supply, get some selling, lower highs, right? This is the key. Yesterday's most traded price. If you take that out and retest, I think you could get a nice short down to the 67.80s. That could be it, though. However, if the swing low here, if you take that out, like boom, I think we're going to test the overnight lows and hit this demand zone. And that could be it, and maybe you just bounce. Okay. The other conservative short here is a push down. And like I said, this area is an area that you want to be very careful around to not get chopped up. So I want to see a nice drive. Hold, hold, hold. Let's say the market's deteriorating. Retest, and then that could be your short. I don't like shorts up here. Because if we're up here, that means the market is probably strong. Can they work? Yeah. But right now, I don't really think we're going to have any crazy outside move today unless something happens with that hearing. Okay? So that's your plans for the ES. Now let's move over to the NASDAQ. I'll get you guys out of here. Okay? All right. So currently, this is your NASDAQ. Now remember, it's switched a little bit. NASDAQ has been relatively weaker. Okay? NASDAQ was relatively weaker. And we already went over it in the hourly charts, right? We came down to this high volume node right there. You can see the orange big peak. And that was all she wrote. We got bought, right? That's what I said would happen if we came down there most likely yesterday. And it proved what I'm saying. I mean, it's not like I'm proving myself right. But that's what I said. Okay? We're right at yesterday's close. We closed at the lows. Okay? Now, very important here. Okay? Very important. We have a supply zone here. And the supply actually encompasses a lot of information. Okay? 50% retracement of the overnight is 25439. Happens to be value area low also. So I'm just going to make a nice range here. Make it simple. Okay, make it simple. Now we do have maybe Cole, maybe, maybe, right? Did you? I'm glad you're here to see what I said, right, from yesterday. Exactly what I said. 253. I said the 6780s in the ES. You don't just go through those levels. I don't know if this is a bull run now. I don't know. I really don't. I never claim to know. I just give you my analysis, right? So the other thing you have to look out for is this. Okay. Right here. That's last week's lows. And it happens to be that I'm looking at this. The most traded price of yesterday was all the way up here in the Nasdaq. Interesting, right? Interesting. So, what could we deem from what we're looking at, right? So, we never filled the gap yesterday. We have a gap now unfilled up here. So let's get right into it. Like I said, I still don't even know what I'm going to say, but let's get into scenarios here. Let's map it out. Let's open up this session. There's our overnight activity. There's our overnight activity. Okay. Like I said, this can turn out to be a range-bound day. That would be the most probable outcome today, is a whole bunch of games getting played. Digest the move. Is this the next bull run for all-time highs? Is this when tech finally takes a back seat? I don't know. I don't know. All I know is we're going to do scenarios right now. And the scenarios are exactly that. I'm never married to an idea. It's always if then that. Okay? If then scenarios. All right, so we're right at yesterday's close right now. We're right at yesterday's lows. We're at the overnight highs. All right, same stuff that I'm going to talk about here. It's just different levels, of course. Okay, so we're back into yesterday's range. We put a stick in the ground here at this high volume node at 253s, right? We got a swing high, a swing low, right? This came up, boom, and now we're kind of trending back up. Now, can we go back into yesterday's range? I don't know, but let's see. What if this is very clear? Now you have the overnight VPOC around the 25517s right here. Right there is the most traded price of the overnight. That has been very key every morning in my analysis to make track. You write those down. Overnight VPOC 25517. So if I'm bullish, okay, I wouldn't mind this run up into this resistance level. Okay, you can see this is a previous overnight low here, 25644s. Okay. And then what I would like is this, one of two things. A pullback to yesterday's close, and you could start taking off, right? Try to fill that gap. Or you get a little bit of a deeper pullback to the overnight VPOC. Remember, that's the most traded price of the overnight. You do not cut through those like a hot knife through butter. Again, if you do, then sellers are strong. But this is the bull case, right? I expect a pullback and you retest, you could start to push up. Get those little shorts thinking this market's falling apart and you rip their faces off, right? And you start moving back up. Now again, this market would have to continually get stronger to do that move. You might only get the move to the, to 25698, last week's lows. That could be just it. I don't know. Okay, but let's look at the chart of one little thing. All right, let's say you shorted here, right? And then you made this move. Whoop. Well, maybe you put your stop here then, right? And then you're like, ooh, we broke those lows. Put my stop here. So that's a nice short, right? You move down to here. And now if you're in futures, you could be like, all right, Let's see what we could do, right? And you're like, let me see. I'm going to move my stop here now. We just moved. And now what happened, right? We went down violently, right? And if you're a short, you're getting paid. And now what? We just went like this, consolidated, did a little sweep, which is a bear trap, and ripped back up. If we do this, any bit of this, I believe shorts will start to cover. Okay? You just have to think about it emotionally. If I was short up here and we just did that, am I holding my short if we move up? Probably not. Okay? Shorts, let's talk about those. Oop. Just got rid of this. I think I had it here. And that's not the color I want. Okay. Let's talk about the bear side because there obviously is one. Now, look, we kind of put a double top right here. That's a poor high. Okay. Now, that's very breakable now to the upside. I even like it more now. Okay. Now, we're pulling back a little bit. That's fine. What if all we can muster is the lows of yesterday, right? Let's say we break that, hit this resistance, boom, make a lower high, right? Thinking that now you got long in the market, right? Well, what if we come through that most traded price of the overnight? That's bearish. 25517s, and you retest it. You're going to come down here to that high volume mode. And folks, I think that would probably be it. The 253s. Might get a little move past the overnight lows. Okay? I think we would probably bounce up from here. Now, if the SCOTUS and all that stuff is, let's say, keeps tariffs on, that might be bearish because now Trump's tariffs are in our markets, right? That the Fed can look at as inflationary, which they're really not. But that could be the move where it gets weaker, right? Now, the only other thing, that's why I don't like this 253, just like the 6708s or 6780s, I can't remember now in ES. This is an area I think that's going to be a little bit of a choppy chop zone. So, the only other thing that possibly you could do as well, not the only, is if we did take that ride down and you started holding, and let's say that advanced decline on Nasdaq exchange is also negative 2,000 and the ticks are holding, yeah, this is probably going to go lower. Now, I'll be watching that and I'll be updating you guys in my channel on my Discord about those types of things. That's what I've noticed the last 2 days. Ticks been super red and holding under zero. It's never a good thing. That means that we're eventually just any pops or get sold into. Okay? Now, the only thing that I could see happening today, the one last thing, would be a nice push up into last week's lows and into the 50% retracement of yesterday. And I think if you try to come up, let's say the market's not that strong. Let's just say it's just off the open or something, and we do one of these, I think you can revisit those overnight lows. Okay? That's the analysis. I'm out of here now. Give me a smash that like button if you enjoyed that. Hopefully you did. Hopefully you did. All right. And as always, please join me every morning. I give you all the latest news, all the technical analysis, and I'm always spot on. I am. But technical analysis, I wouldn't say is that hard. Okay? You need to get your lumps and bruises and understand how the market works, but the TA is like, that's mine's on point. All right? I can be confident in my TA. It's just nobody knows what the market's going to do. Nobody. Okay? You can have probabilities. And that's all I can really do is go what probably usually happens. That's all I can do. All right, now, if you want to get those updates like my breadth, my internals indicators, you join my Discord. Okay, you join my Discord. Okay, I'll give you the updates. I'll give you my intraday commentary. I'll let you know what I am seeing currently. Now, I always do it usually in snapshots, 10 and 15, next to the next 5 to 10 minute snapshots, because anything can happen and change. But generally, when I get a good sense of the story, it pretty much does what I think it's going to do. All right, I can say if it's range bound. The internals will tell me, is today going to be range bound? Do we have the steam? Like yesterday, we didn't have the steam in the S&P 500 to really break and go super low. We didn't. The market wasn't that weak. Okay, so trust me, I'll let you guys know that if you join my Discord. So with that being said, everybody have a great day. We have our plans. If I don't see you on my Discord, I'll see you guys tomorrow morning.